Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. So, today I just want to take a quick moment and do just a bit of a walk around on my shop real quick and talk about tooling. So, this is a question I get asked a lot of, and I recently just had a comment in one of my comment sections about the monkey tool I made and why I didn't make it out of a suitable steel and harden and temper it like you would do a hammer. And essentially, I just wanted to share my thoughts on tooling. So, in my shop, I get paid to make products, make items. And with that, I don't actually sell enough time on jobs, as my work is already fairly expensive. I don't actually sell enough time on jobs to create tooling or the hours that it takes for the tooling on top of the actual hours for the job. So, that's something I hope to change in the future to where, I can just afford really expensive tooling and make it all day long. But I just kind of wanted to show you a few things around the shop. So, excuse the light and shadow stuff. Hopefully that's being okay. So an example of this. All these tongs you see here, with the exception of these scrolling tongs here, which I bought at Quad State, are all mild steel. All the tongs there, all the tongs there, all mild steel. These power hammer tools for sledging operations, all mild steel. They're meant to be used. Once they're used up, you make another one. Simple as that quick. So, those are all mild steel. Obviously, I've got my choice of hammers up here. I've got some just your regular standard steel hammers. A lot of them I've made myself. A lot of these hammers I've made myself. As you can see there, those are all high carbon steel. Various steels and whatnots. Okay? Well, what about stuff like Bics or Hardy tools? Well, we're going to try to take a look at this here real quick. That there is a Bic. It's just a large cross-section of mild steel. Nothing to it. You are taking something that's hot and you're bending it around something cold. Ideally, something that's hot is going to bend before something cold will, unless you've got it weak or forging right. This right here, this is a planishing stake. Now this is meant to take and be hammered upon like an anvil. So I've made this out of a piece of 1045. That's a piece of higher carbon steel. Now, some people will say it's not the highest carbon thing in the world, which I don't care. It makes a good tool, especially if it's just a tough steel. Make it that way. Same thing with this hot cut. It is engaging metal, so it needs to be a hardened tool. It's cutting, shearing, punching, drilling, anything of that nature that's engaging hot steel usually needs to be a hardened and tempered tool. On other things, like, get up here, sorry guys, this saw face hammer, and I'll make mention of this real quick, but the saw face hammer, I have used this thing. I made this thing 3 years ago. It was just a piece of, I believe, 2" by 1.5" material, and I went ahead and just punched a hole through it. Punched and drifted a hole through it. I use this to hit let's take you down here, sorry guys. I use this to cut off material. That way if I miss hit and I hit the Hardy tool, boom, I'm not damaging the face of another hammer. So I use a saw face hammer for this. The part that I'll mention about this saw face hammer, okay, you'll see all this nasty rag and stuff that's around it. If this was a hardened tool, all those areas that are chipping out there are a danger to you. And if you ever let your hammers get this bad, one, you're not doing very good forge work, and two, if you're letting your hammers get this bad, you're creating a danger to yourself and everyone in the shop. So I was recently corrected by an older smith at my blacksmithing club over this past weekend, where I did a little demonstration with a guy by the name of Ben Beckett at Beckett Forge. And we did some traditional joinery and worked together putting together a rail section together, doing some power hammer tenons and things. We didn't do a whole lot. It was just like 2 pieces, like a real short section just to show how it worked together. But I was told that I was teaching everybody a bad thing. So on one of my upcoming videos, I'll just do a remake of this thing. I will still keep this in my shop, and I'll still use it on my hot cut because it's a perfect good tool for that. And as you can see right there, it takes abuse. It takes to get cut up. But that's a mild steel hammer, and it's lasted 3 years, like it is. My theory behind tooling is supposed to complement the work that you're doing. Okay, guys? So if you're just getting started, like when I first got started, it was very difficult for me to find the proper tool steels and the sizes and things to make all these glorious tools like you see all these professional shops have. And at that time, any steel supplier wasn't going to talk to me unless I was buying 2 tons of steel. And if you're just a beginner, if you're a hobbyist, or maybe you've been at it a long time, but you're not at the level where you can bite off a chunk of 2 tons of steel bought at one time, this is where mild steel comes into play. Is it going to last as long as a high carbon tool steel piece? No. If the high carbon tool steel piece was hardened and tempered for its proper purpose and only used for that purpose. Stuff like drifts. It's a lot of material. You need a specific shape. You may use it a bunch. You may not use it that much, especially in my work. Like I've got a job coming up here, which is essentially a, well, here I'll show you. It's a Thor hammer for a client. And now this is just a test. This is also mild steel. This is going to become that other little bit of, it's going to be the other soft face hammer I'm going to make. I do a remake. This drift, I made it up, mild steel. This thing's been around in my shop, drifting hammers, for 2 years. It's just mild steel, guys. There's no point in having to make it out of something like 1084, 1095, H13. You don't have to get those elaborate and very expensive steels when you first get started and get going. If you're going to do something that is production, if you're going to do a lot of something, then it's worth making a good tool. So, stuff like over here. I'll show you. Things you can't get away from not using good tool steel. Cold chisels. You're cutting off cold metal. Mild steel will never work. You got to have some coil spring for that purpose. I do a lot of teardrop shaped pans, frying skillets. So I made myself a teardrop shaped drift. I made that out of a piece of high carbon steel because I make a lot of them, so it's worth the effort to make a bunch of those. Chisels, slit chisels. There again, I'm cutting, shearing, punching, doing something of that nature off. It's worth doing out of good steel. Plus, coil spring is just about the right size for punches and chisels and things like that. So if you're making a drift, make it out of mild steel. If you're making a soft face hammer, it's perfectly fine to make that out of mild steel. You don't have to make that out of tough things. Stuff like the monkey tools. You make them, if they do last 100 tenons, great. If they last 50 tenons, great. If they last 5,000 tenons, great. They take 5 minutes to make. 5 minutes. They're not worth the time to spend the extra 25 minutes bringing stuff up to critical, letting it normalize, so on and so forth, and doing all this stuff just for a tool that would have took 5 minutes. You could have knocked out your 50 tenons, and if it was all boogered up after that, you could have dressed it up or threw it away and made another one. So that's a bit of my theories on tooling, and my thought process on that. Whether you need high carbon steel for something or whether you need low carbon steel, or if that'll work. In a pinch, even a low carbon steel forging hammer, if that's all you make, although there's plenty of high carbon steel commercial made hammers out there that you can buy, especially at garage sales. So I don't think that's a real issue. But say you were in that situation that, hey, you need a specific hammer to do a very specific job, but you don't have the steel, it's going to cost a lot of money, make it out of mild steel. If it lasts one job, it was worth the make. You gain skills and abilities during that time, so that is worth that much. But, you know, it also helps you think through the process for when you do get good steel and you're not wasting money on a $60 worth of steel. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say about that. This is kind of a vlog thing. I actually took the little telescopic thing out of my tripod and using it kind of like a selfie stick. But I've had a lot of work here lately, had a lot of work to do. I plan on getting back to regular forging videos as soon as I possibly can. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, one thing before I go. For those that have waited and you know, have waited this long into this video, and the ones that haven't just jumped off, you guys are going to get an extra special treat. So, this here is my homemade power hammer. Right now, I have a guy, he's designing the plans for this. He's drawing it all up. It's taken him longer than expected just because of the multiple components and things. I've been asked several times to do walk-arounds and full explanations and things like that. I'm not going to do that until I have plans available. It's just, there's so much there that unless you have plans sitting in front of you, you're not really going to actually kind of conceptualize how much stuff there is to do on this hammer. There are a lot. I'll just do a little walk, just a little flyby here for everybody. If you think you can create it off of a flyby or just Roy talking about it, you know, more power to you, but there's so much work on one of these things. It's a really nice hammer, you know, don't get me wrong, but there's so much to do. A lot of mechanical parts to get right, a lot of things to do that. So when my guy has the plans ready for that, I plan on taking and doing a bit of an in-depth walkthrough on the actual plans themselves. You know, kind of going over the plans and kind of pointing out what part's what and how it functions. I've already made this hammer. I'm not going to build another one for doing a whole how-to. I'm not going to do that. I've already built one hammer. I'm just going to show kind of some of the things that it can do, that it's very handy for. The other day I was actually taking rose blanks and I was texturing them under that power hammer. So, you know, it's definitely a very nice hammer for that. It's got a lot of control. It is home built, and there's thousands of styles out there. This is just something I came up with. But I'll go over that, like I said, a lot more in detail once I have the plans. And yeah, pretty much. So we are still on track, by the way, everyone, for the other power hammer, the little wooden helve hammer that I plan on building. It is not, I'll repeat again, it is not my original Da Vinci cam hammer, and it is not my revisited design either. It is a new style of a beam hammer that's like an old Bradley helve hammer. And I'm going to take you through the step-by-step process of building the bearings and building the cam assembly and all the various bits and bobs and pieces of it. And I hope you guys will enjoy that when I get to it. But anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What tooling you use. You know, do you use a lot of mild steel? Are you just fanatical? 100%, it's got to be high carbon steel, no matter what. Anyway, share your thoughts down in there. I'm just sharing with everybody out there what I do in my shop. It's not always the best thing. It may not always be the right thing to do, but it's my way of doing it. So, anyways, thanks for watching. God bless you all, and we'll catch you on the next one.